Okay, so in this video I will show you how to use Physics 2D in Unity. So I've just set up a project and I'm going to create a sprite. So this is a 2D project, so I'm able to create a sprite. So you can just do it by clicking on plus here, 2D, sprites, square. And I'll just use squares for now. So now if I will drop this here, change this to a different tool, so I can make a bigger square. Okay, so I've set up a sprite here. So this is going to be my floor. So if I want collision detection, I will need to add a collider. So typically, since this is a rectangular shape, I would use a box collider, but you can always check in Physics 2D different colliders. So we have a box collider, a capsule collider, circle collider, and there are other different options. Like if you're importing a shape with complex geometry, you would use something like a polygon collider. This is very handy. But for now, let me just create a box collider. So this will be here. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but this should have like a green outline. So that means I have a collider here. So that means I can now do collision detection. So from here, so let's call this my floor. I will create another object, and I will add a box collider here. So you can just type in and add the box collider. So make sure when you're working in 2D, you select box collider 2D, not the cube one. So this is for 3D. We're working in 2D in this example. So bang. So now I have my box collider, and so if I would to press play now, not much will happen because I have just created two objects with colliders. So even though I can detect them, we don't really have any physics. So to add physics to an object, you need to add a rigid body. And so same thing here. If I've added box collider 2D, I will have to add rigid body 2D like this. And I will just add that, and I'll just press play. Okay, so we have our box that responds to physics. So this is just very simple implementation. So I will just press Ctrl D to duplicate this box a few times. And I'll just make a few of them. So you should see. So yeah, if I press play, you can see they will all fall down in a physical way. Okay. So this is working, right? So now let's say, so this is good. So if I want to add another, wall that's not moving, you simply just need to add another sprite with just a collider. You don't need rigid body if the object is not moving. So let's just do it from beginning. So I'll add a, let's do like a wall, and I'll also give them different color just so it's easier to understand what I'm doing. Let's say my walls are green. So this is a wall, and you can see if I didn't add a collider, and I will just place it here, then you will so then this is not detectable by physics, so objects will simply fly through it. So this is useful for things like backgrounds, foregrounds, maybe particle systems, like things that player doesn't interact with. But I do want it to be physical, so I will add box collider 2D just like that. So this is added. And now if I will press play, you will see immediately this box will stay in place, and things will bounce off this box. I can move it as well, either with code, or for now this is just I'm moving it in the debug mode in the editor. And again, you can change the shape of this rotation, and it will act accordingly. So let's do that. Okay, so this is working. So now, if you're just learning physics, it's a good call to make a lot of kind of like different walls, and maybe make a little pathway to like, let's say, roll down the ball and just see how it interacts with physics. So I'm just going to, let's say, do that. I will create another sprite, 2D, sprites, and I'll make a circle this time. So that's my circle. I will drop it here. Let's also give it maybe a different color. So if I want to move the circle, I will add the, so instead of box collider, because you know box collider will look like this, you can see it's outside, so I don't really want that. I will add the circle collider 2D, yeah, so you can see it's outlining the actual shape. And you can always, you know, go into your colliders and, like, you know, change their radius, or in the case of you know, box, you can change so it's X and Y, or you can also change the offset, so where the collision actually happens. So all of that is, you know, controllable. But for now, I'm just making a circle, so it can already collide with things, but I do need to add a rigid body so that it's you know, it will roll down. So you can see right now it's just stuck there. But now if I would add rigid body 2D, hit enter, now press play. Okay, so you can see our ball is rolling on its own. And yeah, it's kind of good to create these kind of systems just to get a feel for physics. For example, you could make like, let's place a ball here, and I will place another one. I'll just change the color so it just looks a bit different. I'll place this ball here, and you can see in our rigid body settings we have a few things. So the object is dynamic, so it can be moved. Simulated physics, we can change our mass, so how heavy is the object. We have linear drag, angular drag, so so you can, you know, the object will slow down when it's moving. So let's just add linear drag to 1, and I will move this here, and I will drop these two balls at the same, like, from the same height. So you should see the difference. Like, see this ball right here is less responsive. I can even change linear drag to something like 10. You'll be even less responsive. So it's as if it's moving through like water or jelly or something slow. Okay. So for now I'm gonna go here and just remove linear drag. You could also change gravity. So let's say I'm gonna set this, instead of 1, I'll set it to -1. And then if I'll press play, my object should fly up. So there it goes. And straight away I can start making, you know, maybe some interesting interactions. Like if I place this here, duplicated it, I'm just pressing Control D, Control D, Control D, just like that. And let's press play. So you can see these balls tried to move it, and then the other ball just fell down anyway. I could also like you saw how they interacted with each other, because they have the same mass. They were able to carry this ball together because it's more of them. But if I let's just duplicate it. So if I just took this, moved it here, and this ball is gonna have mass, let's say, set to 50. Okay, so a ball on the left has mass of 1, and the ball on the right has mass of 50. So I'll just press play. Let's see the difference. So you can see this ball right here was, you know, much heavier, much more aggressive physics simulation. Let's play it again. Right. And you know, this will also be true how they interact with each other. Okay, so yeah, so these are kind of important things to know for now. So this is, yeah, linear drag. So this is angular drag. So how much the object is willing to like rotate. So how much like torque it has. I will try to show you a little demonstration now. So let me just take this and move it here. Let's just make a little like floor. Like that. Okay, and I will create so I will create another so I'll try to make something like a seesaw, something that stays in one place but is able to rotate. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's place it here. Let's just give it a different color so it's, you know, stands out. And so first of all, you will need a box collider because, you know, that makes sense for the shape. Then I'll add the rigid body 2D. So now, you know, if I were to press play, this would just fall down, right? So this is expected behavior. But if I want to lock it, I actually have an option. I have constraints here at the bottom of the rigid body. You have to open the app, and I can freeze different positions, or I can freeze rotation. So in this case, because I wanted to respond to physics, but I wanted to kind of like act like a seesaw like this, or like a propeller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze X and Y positions like that. And let me just drop something on here so it will make difference. It'll be visible basically. Okay, so you can see it's not moving on X and Y position because it's the object is frozen, but it did rotate. And also this is, you know, you could change that with code on runtime, so you can change your constraints. So for example, if I remove this and this, the object will just fall down and act like a, you know, regular stick or something. So now let's just take a look at, as I said before, let's take a look at angular drag. Okay, so I have this object here, which has angular drag of, let's set it to 0. So if something will set it into motion, like of rotation, it will just keep on spinning. And I will copy and paste that. And I will place this object right here. And I will add linear drag of, let's do something like 10. And let's just see what happens. So here's my ball. Its mass is 50. Let's just, you know, make it 1. So it just acts the same as this because they have the same color. And so I will just drop like a few balls here. Oh, actually, let's do 1 and 1. That'll be more obvious to see what's going on. Okay, so I have two identical balls here. They have same physics properties, and then I have two like propellers here. So one has angular drag of 0, and the other one has angular drag of 10. And I will just make it a little bit lighter so it just stands out. And they're dropping on more or less the same place. So let's just press play. So you can see how this object just keeps on spinning because it has, well, it doesn't have angular drag, but this object, it has angular drag, so it has tendency to slow down on rotation. Okay, so yeah, so that's the difference between angular drag and the linear drag. So linear drag is the motion of the object, and the angular drag is the rotation of the object. So yeah, these are kind of important parts here. Then we can start maybe experimenting with this a little bit more. We could do things like, let's create a different shape for this. Maybe like a hexagon. Here's a hexagon. I'll make them a little bit bigger. And so what I want to do, I will make them maybe blue. And what I want to do, I want to just act as if they're floating in space. So let me just move these guys away. So to make them act, you know, as if they're in space, I will still need to add so collider. So you can see, you know, if I'll try to add the box collider, it's not going to be a correct, you know, collision. So I don't really want that. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to add. It is called. So not edge, so it's called a polygon collider. Okay, so and when you press on that, it will do its best job to go around the shape of your sprite and create a collider. And also, you know, if it doesn't work for you, you know, let's say this is wrong somewhere, I can always click on edit collider, and I can like change my collider like this. But I don't really want to do that right now, so I'm just gonna press Ctrl Z. Just leave it as is. Okay, so the collision is set up. Now I just need to add the rigid body 2D. So same again, if I pressed play, it would just, you know, fall down normally because it has gravity. But if I clicked on it, let me just make it smaller. If I clicked on it and I set the gravity to 0, okay, then you will see something interesting. So I'll just make this on the collision course. So let's just press play. Okay, so you can see it moved it. It wasn't moving on its own, but now it's acting as if it's flying in space, yeah? So let's just create a few more of them to, you know, demonstrate the effect a little bit better. So I'll just make a little chain reaction of objects in space. And again, I'm just pressing Control D to duplicate objects. You can also, you know, select all of them and do, you know, Control D. Maybe make them smaller, place them here. Entirely up to you. So now, yeah, let's just drop this here, drop that maybe here, and let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see they're trying to pass through these objects. Because they have the same mass, you know, they kind of get in the way. If I want them to be really floaty, so I will either need to make their mass smaller, or I will make you know, the balls that interact with them, their mass, you know, larger. So let's try to make them like super light. So let's say like 0. So obviously you can't have mass of 0, it has to be at least something, right? So like 0, 0, 0, 1 is okay. So let's press play, see what happens. So you can see this time it was much easier to push them around, right? Because they are they have lesser mass than the balls that are rolling. And you can, you know, find your kind of like sweet spot, let's say like a 0.5. So all of them, they have 0.5, and these guys, they have 1. So let's press play, see what happens. Yeah, so you can see they're pushing them, but you know, there's a bit of resistance because they're half as light as these objects. Okay, so yeah, so it's really good to kind of create like a little I don't know what's called, like a little obstacle course where you know, you roll the ball and you have a lot of different physical interactions, like a little pathway where you have like propellers, kind of little floating blocks, just to get used to physics. So another thing we can take a look at is physics properties. So right now, when I'm dropping these balls here, so let me just make a little like a plate. So if I will do this, they will drop normally. Okay, so right now these balls, when I press play, they kind of like bounce. Well, they don't really bounce, they just fall down, kind of like metal would, right? But what if I want to add, you know, physical properties? What if I want to have different material? What if, you know, these balls are bouncy, right? I can actually do that really easily. So you can either add physics materials to like the environment, or you can add it to the object itself directly. So for example, like your player, or you have some sort of effect, you can just add it to them. So I think for now, let's just add it like to the balls and just let's see what happens. So I will change their color. I will make these, yeah, I will keep this ball as red, and I will make this one, let's say, what's a color we haven't used? Maybe like orangey yellow, like a yellowish. Let's do it like that. Okay, so they have the same height, and on the yellow one, I will make it bouncy, right? So we have an option here in our collider, which is a physics material, right? So if you want to insert one, we need to create one first. So it's, you can see it's missing physics material 2D. So, you know, by default all the values are set to 0, so it's kind of acting as a metal, right? So let's create a material. So right click, so you can either, you know, right click here, or you can press plus here and find it. It's the same, you know, thing. So create, and then we go no, it's not 2D. Is it? Oh no, sorry. It was 2D. So create a physics material 2D, right? So I'll just do it one more time. So create 2D physics material. So it's here. And let's call it bouncy. Okay, so here's my material. It's bouncy. We've got friction here. I can also show friction in a moment. Let's just set friction to 0 and bounciness to 1. So I have created material, but I need to apply it. So I will apply it to the yellow ball. So you can either, you know, take this and drag and drop it here, or you can, you know, find it and apply it. So that's entirely up to you. I prefer just drag and dropping it in because I can see what I'm doing. So to the yellow circle, I have applied the bouncy material. So let me just press play and let's see how, like, what happens. Oh look, so it's bouncing now. You can also make a few copies of them, so it's a bit more, oops, so the effect is a bit more pronounced. Keep on pressing on this. Control D, let's make more. Okay, it's a good amount. So you can see the yellow, you know, balls are restless, they just keep on bouncing. So if I want to, I can also go on this material and reduce bounciness to like 0.5, and then all of them, because they're all using the same physics material, they will be not as bouncy, right? So you can see they bounce, but not as much as last time. And let's see, we can actually, I don't know what the limit is. It seems like it's infinity, but you know, if I set my bounciness to like something like 2, they should bounce out of proportion in very unrealistic way. So yeah. So this is, you know, fun to play with. Just, you know, give it a go. You know, adding physics materials, maybe changing mass, linear drag and things like that, just to see what happens, you know, see what kind of physics effects you can recreate. So another thing that I want to show you is, so if you've noticed in our physics material, we have friction and we have bounciness. So we already looked at bounciness. Let's take a look at friction. So I will create a little like a heel, and then what is this? So yeah, a little heel. Yeah, so one thing, sometimes when you're editing objects, you can see, you know, my like sprite tool, rect tool, it was kind of shaped like this, so it's a bit hard to manipulate objects. So if you want to, you know, change it from global to local, you can just press on this little globe and click here, and you can see it'll be easier for me to kind of like manipulate this object. So yeah, I just want to make a little heel, just like that. So I'll just rotate it, move it down, and maybe, you know, let's make a little, so it kind of like progresses in different, you know, it becomes steeper and steeper and steeper. So I will take my yellow ball right here. I will place it here. So it already has bouncy material. I'm gonna just click on it and rename it friction, and I will remove bounciness. So bounciness is 0 and friction is 0. So let's just run it as is and see what happens. Okay, so it acts quite normally. So now I will click on this and I will let's make, I think, more of them so you can maybe see a bit better what's going on with them individually. So let's make 5. Okay, so they're just rolling down. So this is fine. Now I'm gonna click on the friction material, and I'm gonna increase it to, let's do 1 and see what happens. So now all of them have friction of 1. Right, so you can see how they are, you know, they have a bit more of a friction. They're not so slippery, so they rolled a bit slower. So let's increase friction to like 10. Let's press play. So now they should be a bit more like sticky. So you can see they even touched this edge almost. Let's increase friction even more. So now it's a friction of 100. Let's press play. You can see, yeah, they're very sticky. I could also, you know, maybe mix it up a bit, you know, have large friction like 100, and on top of that add linear drag to like maybe 2. So this is something to play with, but let's just try 2. So they kind of like, they will move slower through the space. So they should appear like stickier. Yeah, like, see, they're not really willing to move much. So they should kind of like, yeah, follow the curve pretty well. And they'll fly with the same speed as well. Okay, so yeah, so it's good practice if you can try to recreate a little course like this, where, you know, maybe you drop a bunch of balls from the top, and then you have this kind of little I don't know, like obstacle course, where you know, you explore different physics. So for example, you know, so you have your propellers, you have your objects that, you know, act as if they're in space, you know, different kinds of objects. You have your walls. Just, you know, kind of get used to the idea of playing with that. So let me just drop that maybe like this. So Control D, move my wall here like that. Maybe drop a bit more, and let's see what happens. Okay, so that's pretty fun. You could even, you know, maybe trigger them so you know, the propeller starts rotating another propeller like this, and then let me just maybe move that here. What else we have? We have these like anti-gravity balls here. We could also place them somewhere, maybe like this. And let's just see what happens. Okay, so you can see a little chain reaction here, how, you know, they all move each other in some way. I think, yeah, another fun thing to try is like if you make a little floor like this, and you will just place, let me just check rotation. Looks like it's rotated a bit, so 0, 0, minus 90, 90. Okay, so this is perfect rotation now. So I just want to make a little domino effect, like literally. So I'll just place a cube here. Then I will add a box collider. So this is good. So now I just need maybe a rigid body, so it's, you know, being affected by physics. And so I'll just place them here. Select, well, either tool is fine, this one or this one. I just find it, because I'll be copying my objects this way, I can just use that arrow. So Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. Maybe I can select a few of them like that. Again, Control D. Okay, so we have a little domino effect here. let me just drop a ball here. So hopefully this works. I don't know if it's set up properly, but it might need to be a bit lighter. Yep. It wasn't heavy enough, so you know, maybe I can go and make this ball heavier. So 10. So this is 10, and now these guys are 1. Okay, so this is not working quite how I want it to work. I want to, you know, have a domino effect. So let me just, maybe if I will trigger it, like touch it here, maybe like this. Yeah, so that's kind of effect I wanted. So, you know, for example, you have this dropping this way, and then, you know, maybe based on that something else happens, you know, maybe this like last like domino drops somewhere else and, you know, triggers another effect. Something to play with. So let's just try that. Yeah, and that could, let's say, trigger this, and then something else happens, and then something else happens. So yeah, just experiment, you know, try to do little things like this. I think it's quite fun. Yeah, enjoy.